Hello there, and welcome to episode 75 here at Cuzzo-OP. I am one of the hosts here, Willie, also known as Arrow, and as usual, we have the other host here at Cuzzo-OP.
Ivy, what's good? It's Isaiah. Glad to be here for another episode, and we're not alone.
We are not alone. We are not alone. Just in case you didn't listen to yesterday's short episode, I'm here, and Ivy is here with my sister, Stella. So Stella, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people.
There you go. Now, if you listen to our getting into Halloween episode, you heard my father's episode, and what you heard right there was just a small taste of it makes sense that we're related. So we're finally excited to have Stella on. You know, we managed to get all of Ivy's siblings onto the show last year. And so I'm here like, all right, I need to make moves because there's a takeover happening here and I need to get in there. So I planned this out a long time ago. I was like, ooh, we're here to talk about Inside Out 2. Yeah. And who could we have on? Oh, the person that's closest to me that I know that matches the demographic that this movie is trying to speak to. Bet. So that's why we have Stella here to give her insight onto this film. And so I think what would be best is to just dive straight into us going into the film, how we feel about the first movie. Right now, Ivy and I did an episode on Pixar a few weeks ago talking about all of the movies. But just in case you didn't tap into that specific part, I watched Inside Out for the first time last year in January, and it quickly became like my favorite animated movie of all time, just because of the emotional impact that it had on me, the way that they were talking about certain like crazy ass topics. My fault. I'm not even gonna curse this episode because this is serious. And it was just beautiful. And it spoke to kids. I remember Stella playing with her little Bing Bong toy and Joy and all that. And she could be embarrassed. It's okay. We're here to embarrass you a little bit also. But Isaiah, how about you, bro? What's Inside Out 1? Like, what's your experience with that?
Well, I guess first and foremost, I just want you to know I am probably going to curse because I think it's great that Stella's here with her Riley head ass. It's going to be beautiful. I think at the end of the day, man, Inside Out was a monumental movie for Pixar. I mean, it broke grossing records. It was bringing different demographics of people into certain conversations. It was studied psychologically. I know there are professors in psychology programs in colleges and high schools that use this movie to help students visualize certain parts of learning about the brain and development and growth. And I just feel like for me, it is one of those ones where if you have a heart, it hits. And that's what happened for me. I remember definitely tearing up. I mean, Pixar movies, as I said on our episode, they all make me cry for the most part. There's always like one part where they let the strings or the instrument, the music in the background hit at the perfect time. And you're just like, ugh. And Inside Out was definitely one of those ones for me. It was a special film. And yet I don't necessarily have it in my top 5, which is kind of crazy. But I know this is super special for you, Arrow. What about you, Stella? What did you think about the first Inside Out?
I watched the first Inside Out multiple times because I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was a correct demonstration of like, you know, like it makes you feel like you're not alone and like everybody's dealing with the same thing.
Right, yeah. And then you were little when that movie came out too. So, I mean, you've watched it over the years also and kind of like seen how that makes you feel also, or do you just straight up, I remember it when I was 6?
I think we watched it over the years. Yeah, we did. Multiple times. Just like, you know, like also like the family bonding part.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, it's my favorite Pixar movie. I mean, it's like I said, it's basically my favorite animated movie. But I do think when you watch these films, changes your opinion on them. You know, if you watch it on a random Sunday afternoon that you had a bright and sunny day, who knows if that will hit harder than when you're going through turmoil or something that you feel alone in, and that movie comes and says, yo, I got you too, you know? So that brings us to going into Inside Out 2, expectations, right? You know, you have some people that will say, why is this first movie getting a sequel to begin with? And then you have others saying there's a lot of untapped potential about what they could dive into and the experiences of growing up and developing yourself. I'm excited. And so for me, I mean, I didn't have years of sitting down and waiting on this film. I watched this movie after the second one had already been announced. And so it wasn't a question about whether or not it deserved it for me. It was, oh, what could they do? And so going in, I'm like, oh, I obviously need to see puberty. I need to see the shake up, the earthquake that happens as you enter that period of life.
Yeah.
As someone who wants to work with the adolescent demographic within my own career, let me see how this handles that. And so that's how I kind of just went into this movie. Isaiah?
I just wanted this movie to be as groundbreaking as I felt Inside Out 1 was. I think we talked about Pixar's movies in the past, and you know, for the most part, the average of their movies, they're like high 80s. You know what I mean? Like they just put out stellar films. But we just live in an age and in a time right now where everything feels very cheap. And a lot of times when things are made, especially with sequels, it feels like it's built on the fumes of like the first film. I didn't want like a carbon copy. I wanted it to hit as hard, but I wanted it to do it in a way that was its own thing at the same time. And honestly, man, I feel like they delivered. Just giving you my little brief, I felt like they delivered on exactly that. I think in terms of impact, conversations, all these things, I think that this movie has so much in it that we'll be breaking it down just as long as it took us to break down Inside Out. There's still pieces of the movie, the first movie, that people are exploring and talking about and living through and feeling out to this day. I think the same amount of time, that's how long lasting this would be. There's a reason why this movie is the highest grossing film Pixar's ever had. So yeah, that's how I felt going in. I was like, I need to see that same energy, but I want it to be its own thing.
All right. And Stella, you had any thoughts going into this movie, or?
I was excited. I was like really expecting to like relate to the movie because it's about a teenage girl and I'm a teenage girl. So I was like really trying to relate with the movie and like I don't know. Yeah, I'm like trying to relate to the movie and I'm trying to like enjoy the movie and get to know more of Riley as a character.
Okay. So you just were hoping that you could relate to her and expand more on her character, really.
Yes.
Okay. Well, so I mean, you know, we know that when they were making this movie, they actually had a panel of teenagers that they would have that I forgot what they really call them. I don't know if there was like Riley's crew or something, but essentially it was a group of teenagers that every few months they'd call up and they'd show them the movie and show them the process of the movie and say, yo, what do you think of this? What do you think of this concept? Do you think that this fits? And they'd be like, nah, or yeah, keep that in. You know, there's actually one emotion in the film that nostalgia, you know, not to go crazy into the plot yet, but that the creators wanted to remove entirely. They were like, yo, we don't want this. But that crew of 4 to 5 teenagers was like, nah, you keep her in there. You may minimize, but keep her because we feel that too. It may not be as deep, but we feel that too. And so I thought that was cool that they had that branch in terms of making the film. They were like, yo, we need actual lifeline to help us make sure that this feels real. So
it makes sense that a bunch of old heads would want to remove that particular emotion without getting into the weeds of that just yet, you know, and the younger generation being the one that's like, hey, yo, keep that around. Thanks.
Relax. Yeah. But I mean, shoot, let's dive in. You know, I know we normally do our pillars here, but I do want to give a brief how did we feel about the movie? And I'm going to start with Stella. So Stella, how did you feel about Inside Out 2? Yeah, you could be mad that I made you go first. It's okay. Going out, just coming out of the movie, you know? We've had a month to sit here and let our thoughts simmer on the film, you know? I've watched it a second time, in fact. So, but just coming out of the theater, what did you think?
That I liked it, but not a lot. I felt like I had higher expectations to be met. I don't know why you're laughing. I'm being serious. Number one, including.
No. We hear you.
Go. I feel like there should have been some type of boy problems, and then you're gonna be like, oh, the little clip. What is it? The little clip that they had with the boy problems.
The Riley's first date.
Yeah, that's like nothing. Like I wanted some cause all girls have boy problems, and as a teenager, so I think that should have been added in. Number one. Especially with all those emotions, you could have done a lot with that. I feel like your friends fighting over a boy, okay, whatever. And I think a lot of things are displayed correctly. But right now I enjoyed the movie more than I did when I first left the theater because I was hating on the movie because I related to it. So it was every self-discovery, it was just bad.
Okay. So you was hating because you felt something.
Yeah.
Got it. That makes sense. I mean, you know, in my particular field, it's hard to look at yourself and evaluate and find other things that relate and make you think about yourself. So that makes sense. I like to hear that you've come around a little bit more. I'm excited for our deeper conversation. And I'm also excited to address the point that you didn't like. I think that'll be fun. Ivy?
I love this movie, man. I saw it with my wife. We went and saw it during the day at a matinee film on a Friday. And man, it was special. I thought it was a very special film. I thought it was funny. I thought it was very brilliant. I walked away, I cried. I walked away like, man, this is just the same exact beauty that I found walking out of Inside Out. I felt that same feeling with Inside Out too, undeniably. So a lot of the conversations that I'm seeing online, or even I can understand where Stella's coming from 100% because I'm a different demographic than you are. So I respect your expectations not being met. And we can get into that, like you said. But in terms of pure feeling, as I was walking out of that theater, I was like, man, this is one of them ones that when my daughter gets old enough, I'm going to hear her with that 2-pack. She getting the 2-pack over the dome. You need to watch both of these. These are going to go crazy. I also think, I know from a psychology standpoint, there were a lot of really major things that they did in the first film. I can understand some people may not feel like this second film had as many, and it felt more of a story and less tied to these pieces of the human experience. But I actually am in a camp that argues against that. I felt like I learned about myself in this movie. And that's something important. I think if a movie can teach you something about yourself, that's a special thing. So that's how I felt. I felt like I left and I was challenged and taught something about myself. And that's why it was special to me.
All right. Well, I mean, for me, I pulled up I think day one, or even, they do the nighttime showing right before the first technical day. I was there. I said I was going to be there day one. And so I was. Watched the movie, packed theater, kids, adults, teens, everybody watched it. And I had to sit on my thoughts. People are like, yo, what do you think? And I was like, that's a good question. I'm going to have to let you know. And I waited to see what Stella thought of it. And I was like, okay. Interesting. And then I wrote a big review on Letterboxd. I'm talking it might be the longest one I've ever wrote on Letterboxd. Just I went after everything. The plot, the characters, this, that, yada, yada, yada. But overall, I knew it was a satisfying sequel. I enjoyed it, And then so when I went and watched it a second time earlier this week, I saw it in 3D. It was the only time available. And, I'm not crazy about 3D films because I wear glasses and it's kind of aggravating to try and put the glasses over the glasses to watch the film.
It's a big
So I halfway through the movie, I took 3D glasses off and I let the movie look weird for the rest of the film. I just couldn't do it. But
My
I
boy
watched
closed his eyes. He listened to it like a podcast.
I low key for about 20 minutes. That's exactly what I did because I got a headache. So I just listened to what the characters were saying, but it helped me hear some things that hit deeper. So I'm glad you said that actually. But I thought it was a satisfying sequel. I know the high for me clearly is Inside Out 1. That's a super big 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, whatever out of 10 high for me. And so this one, I'm like, yo, you may not be as good for me personally, but that doesn't make you bad. 'Cause, everybody thinks if it's not as good, then it's ass. That's not the case, You already said you was going to curse, so I'm just going to keep it up.
100%.
But, yeah, I enjoyed
Stella,
it a lot.
you can't curse though, Stella. You better not curse.
Why
Why
not?
not? She does it anyway. She just don't want people to know. It's okay.
I said so.
So yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the movie. I think it adds something special, and I think that it leaves room for more that I hope does come around. I just hope that it comes around with passion and not, Inside Out 2 just made the best selling Pixar movie of all time. Let's crank out the third one fast because there's potential there. But if I have to wait 9 years to get this next chapter of Riley, I'll be here every year till I die, bro. Every 9 years, if we just keep going with her, okay.
Sure.
Let's be unique. But let's get into the pillars. All right. So the first pillar we have here is the sound and score, aka music of the film. How did the movie sound? How was the music in the movie, right? And so, I don't know how deep you guys paid attention to this. I've had 2 rounds of it where I was able to find opinions the first time and then focus in on the second time. And so for me, sound wise, I think the movie sounds great. I think all the actors brought their all. I know that acting is later, but we talk about bad mic quality from us, which is kind of funny because sometimes we be stinking. But for these big budget films, it's sad when you hear the mic. And I don't think you heard the mic here. I thought the movie sounded great. And music wise, here's my thing, right? Michael Giacchino did the score for the first film, and he's like my favorite composer. And so when we got here, I'm listening for music that really hits, and I didn't get a lot of that. There was a beautiful piano kind of playing throughout the film, different melodies, which I thought was nice. It felt like it matched the tone. But in terms of like, I'm home now, adding this onto my playlist, I didn't really get anything from here. But again, I don't think that's necessarily any fault on Andrea Dosman. I think it could possibly just be, Michael Giacchino did the first one, right? So how do you really follow up on that?
Yeah. I think when it comes to sound, I'm not as much of a audiophile in this regard when it comes to movies. Like I do care about you. You're the one that usually Arrow likes, like to talk about composers, etc. But for me, the sound was great. I really felt like when the music needed to be special, it was, and I have one particular scene in mind, being when she has her anxiety attack. I think like everything from the anxiety attack to after and the decisions she makes when she gets back on the ice, those moments were so special. And I think that the music coupled that moment perfectly as one of the most, if not the climax of the movie. So I don't know, man. I just think Pixar has always been a production juggernaut. I don't really ever doubt them when it comes to sound or the way it looks. And that's how I felt about this one for sure.
All right. Stella?
I actually didn't really listen to the music, because I don't know. I feel like I could like really like memorize the music from the first movie that like I don't remember any from this movie. And the sound quality of the movie was good. No mic. I don't know what that means, guys. You didn't hear the mic.
You don't have to say the same thing as us, but you're right. They didn't hear the mic.
You think it sounded good, and that's it. Yeah.
They didn't hear the mic.
Good quality. There you go. Yeah.
Good quality. There you go. All right. Well, then our next pillar here is going to be cinematography, aka how the movie looks, just how it looks. It looks beautiful. It's extremely colorful. Doesn't necessarily feel mindlessly colorful. It feels very intentional. You know, I think it's also awesome the way they're able to tell a story via the colors itself. Or like in the first movie, there's like a building in the back of their headquarters that's never used. And so in this movie, they were like, yo, what if that's where the emotions go to sleep at night? And they made their little sleeping quarters that each bed you can tell is for them. Like Anger has a sprinkler in his bed just in case he goes crazy. A sprinkler will shut him down. Joy has a little Bing Bong statue on her dresser. But it looks nice. And the new colorful emotions just add more flavor to it all. And then, I mean, like Isaiah said, there's some sequences that tie down to themes that just look so stunning. Yep. There's two that just speak out to me as incredibly stunning, but they took the concepts of our brain and they made it visually stunning to see and easy to comprehend. So the film looked nice, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. Go ahead, Stella. Yeah.
Because I was thinking about this when you were talking about colors, that the new ones are like so like dark. Like you just said that they were colorful, but like they're so dark compared to the original 5 Christmas.
Like dull, like they're kind of
more... like the other ones are like bright, like red, yellow, and the other ones are like dark blue, gray.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's true.
I agree.
That's true. And I mean, I think it's purposeful because it speaks to what may enter in one's life at that particular time, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, what color are you wearing right now?
Blue.
Not sadness, blue.
Maybe
ennui.
Oh, and these new words. Like, I don't even know what that means. And the one... and the one that I got jealous. That
envy.
one. Envy. Oh, I thought it was something more.
No, it's just envy.
That's when you get jealous, right?
All right. We'll talk about envy. Isaiah, do you have anything for cinematography?
Yeah, I think first off, character design, brilliant. Just brilliant to me. I think you just touched on it, right? They're not as bright, but not only that, there's a couple more elements to that. You know, they're not primary colors. They are, you know, pink, which is red and white. You know what I mean? You know, they're like a darker blue, like kind of like a purple-ish type of color. I know Fear also has that kind of a color, but even Nostalgia with like the beige-ish white kind of look. Like they made this decision to bring more diverse and complicated colors to these complicated emotions because they're not as simple as the initial emotions that we met in the first film are, which just makes sense. So, you know, right from the design of the characters, you can see the intentionality of the team behind creating these emotions. You could tell that every single one of them were made with love and care. Another part of the cinematography that I enjoyed was the design of where they sleep, what their little cubbies have inside, little elements that are key to these characters. It was so smart to put that because it makes it realer. It helps us to be like pulled into each of these emotions deeper as we see parts of their lives that we didn't get to see in the first film. And then as we are introduced to these new characters, I love Embarrassment's hoodie. I think the hoodie is so smart, bro. Like, come on. You know, everybody knows when you want to just sulk and be in your own space, you put your hood on, you know, you got your hands in your pockets and trying to play it cool type of deal. You know what I mean? Like, I think that it's so cool that they designed that. That was so smart. From a setting standpoint within Riley's mind, I thought the sense of self in the area down there with the strings that create the sense of self was beautiful. It was so beautiful. You know, you really feel the difference between these moments that are positive from simple emotions and joy and sadness and anger and disgust versus the way that anxiety strand would be crooked in its design while it's making its way toward the crooked sense of self. Like those are just small design ideas that get you in your heart and your mind to understand the difference of what's happening inside the character. And they do it all visually. They don't tell you it. They just do it. And I love how they did that. I thought that was very smart. And then, bro, it looks better than the first film. I'm not hearing anybody else, as it should, because they've got more technology to make it look better. So one scene in particular, again, this is the key scene. That scene where she has that anxiety attack and she runs her finger on the bench and you can feel the texture of the bench watching her touch it. Like that's all because they visually designed it to be like that, you know. And those are the ways that I think they used elements of animation to further this idea of like, what does it look like to go through the emotional human experience? They did that all really well. Things that are supposed to feel big to Riley because of how they designed the setting to be. Things that are supposed to be intimidating, they feel intimidating. Shadowing in certain scenes, dark moments where she does dark things are dark appropriately. There's so many little layers to it that as you keep watching, you can appreciate more and more of. So the cinematography is definitely stellar. If they don't win an Oscar for this one, I really don't know what to tell you. But we've been there with disappointments before. Shout out Spider-Man. So, you know, that's all I know. The cinematography is beautiful, beautiful.
True. All right. Well, the next pillar I'm going to hit is acting. And I just want to say that for the returning actors that are joy, anger, and sadness, they all do great. I mean, you know, whether or not they got more, character to them the way I wanted, that, unfortunately not necessarily, but they did great. And I mean, we got new actors for Disgust and Fear. And, you know, number one, Fear, Bill Hader. You recognize it's not Bill Hader, but I feel like once you get over that bump, that's not Bill Hader, you have a good time. You have fun. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I think they did good. It's a shame for the reason why Mindy and Bill didn't come back. But I mean, with what we got new, that was cool. Now, for the new actors, I want to specifically focus, obviously, on anxiety. You know what I'm saying? Maya Hawke, right? Maya Hawke.
Yeah.
She was fantastic. I mean, I feel like low key, I can't think of someone who could do it better. And then for Envy, you know, this was someone that I was really looking forward to see with Io Adibri playing Envy.
Yeah.
And she was cool, I guess. We gonna talk about character wise, but you know, she brought that. And then Ennui and Embarrassment, you know, they were also dope. I feel like all of the acting here was just pretty damn good. The new Riley was cool. I wish it would have been the original Riley. I think that would have been cool, but obviously, you know, it's been a year in between the movies, but 9 years in real life. How do you really do that? So, yeah. I mean, acting wise, standouts, I guess Maya.
Yeah, she did her thing. She definitely cooked. Yeah, I mean, I know that, you know, you schedule conflicts. It sucks. I think in terms of Fear, I very much enjoy Tony Hale as an actor. I mean, you know, he was Forky, Toy Story 4, killed that role. So, you know, Pixar knew to go with someone who they worked with previously, knows how to get in that bag. And I loved Fear in this movie. I really did. I think I liked Fear more in this movie than I did last movie. I'll tell you that. I felt like I got to hear and see more from him in this movie than I did the last. And I think that he did a great job in conveying that for sure. But yeah, no, definitely standout is obviously Anxiety. She's got the most lines. And Maya just did her thing. We knew she'd cook. I mean, she was cooking on, I'm pretty sure it was Stranger Things, right? Yeah, Stranger Things. She was cooking on Stranger Things. And so I had no doubts when I heard that she was being the one casted for that particular emotion. Even the way she would deliver certain lines, the way that they would fall out of her mouth really fast, because, you know, you have to worry about it. She just knew how to kind of get that off in a way that brings you into this character. Okay, this person is unsettled. That's anxiety. Yup, you sound like verbalized anxiety. So Maya knocked it out the park. Envy, rocking with you. Her name is Ayo.
Yeah.
I love her because of the bear, obviously, but I think she's great because she's funny. I felt like that character had a funniness to her, not witty, but kind of like a playfulness, almost like a gentle playfulness. And I think she played that well. Do I wish I got to hear more from her? Yeah, we'll talk about that, like you said. But at the end of the day, it's like she did her thing well as well. But another person who was stand out for me, stand out 100%. Ennui, is that it? Ennui?
Ennui, yeah.
Ennui. I liked her a lot. I really did. You know, shorty from a movie called Blue is the Warmest Color. I remember watching that back in high school. Wild movie. Don't watch that. That's not for the kids. But she's an excellent actress. They actually went and got I'm pretty sure she's French, if I'm not mistaken. And she plays that emotion very well. There's, you feel the boredom. You feel the, You know what I mean? And she just did it. She did it really well. I feel like everybody performed well as actors. I have no complaints for any of these actors at all. There's not a single character where I'm like, get this character off the screen. Nobody wants to hear her or hear him anymore. Every single character, I was like, boom, these actors cooked. They came to play. Almost so much so that they're stars, but they're not the star. Like they all work together to make Riley and her emotions the star in a way that's very real. So it's almost like you imagine the same way you say you can't hear the mic. I almost can't hear the actors. I just hear emotions. And I think that that's a really cool thing that they were able to accomplish. What about you, Stella? Were there any voice actors that you appreciated more so than others or some that you didn't like?
I really enjoyed Anxiety once again. Joy. I feel like Anxiety and Joy had a big part of this movie. And even if in the movie they did not like each other, they really like cooperated well, like acting wise, like in the movie, like for the plot. And like it just like really added to the quote unquote emotion like experience. Like, you know?
I absolutely understand. 100%. I think they all played their roles. They played their parts for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Anxiety or Riley, I've been thinking about it. I think they're my top dogs because I just got to think about all the emotions that Riley needs to bring out within her performance versus how each one of the regular ones, they kind of just slide other emotions in small. All right.
Wait,
Yes.
because
Well,
you're in the middle of something. But I just started thinking about nostalgia. And a lot of people are like, oh, like that's the cutest part of the movie, but like I don't really. Does she really do anything? Like, or is that a later topic?
I mean, I don't know if I want to talk smack a little bit right now, but I guess I'm going to. I think that from what I've seen from this current generation of teenagers and even young adults, I think that there are certain things that are trendy and that are cute and quirky, and I think nostalgia has become one of them to be like quirky about. And so maybe that's why people say that, if that makes sense. I mean, you get it. I know you understand that there's quirky things. So I feel like nostalgia is one of those things that are quirky to a certain demographic. And now they're kind of like, oh, look at it. It made it in. Remember when I was 6, you know? So, I mean, you making a face, but I don't know if that means you agree.
I'm trying to understand. Like I understand like its point in the movie, but like, kinda.
But I think that that's why people are saying it's the cutest part because they're like just want to be quirky about it.
You guys are talking about nostalgia. Nostalgia was cute.
Yeah, they were like, oh, like my new favorite character, but like she didn't do anything.
Oh, you guys remember? Yeah, no, I feel you. I think that's
I think
exaggeration.
Riley was too young to like even. Okay, like I'm not saying that I don't have nostalgia, but like I don't think.
Well, that's why nostalgia plays a small role because she says, you know, that's you're not here for another 10 years at least, but you begin to develop that small insight and wish for childhood. You know what I mean? I mean, so let's dive into the themes. Let's just dive into the rest of the movie. Let's just dive in.
Let's just go, bro.
You know what I'm saying? And I just want to come through and say real quick, the start of the movie, here's Riley, here's our update. That's great. They got everything going. They're doing a well-oiled machine again. That's how the brain is moving. And then beep, beep, the beeping starts. And what people don't realize, you know, they actually bring up a concept before the beeping about realization of self, who you are as a person, that beautiful looking pond where she takes the memory and places it in it to form that. And Joy, man, is just making the same mistake she made in the last movie. No matter how much she learns, she's just making the same mistake in the terms of, yo, this is bad. We don't remember this. We just want to shoot this up into the stratosphere. We don't need this. And that's just bad. And then she brings this ball down to the sense of self that one would argue brings forth everything that happens in this movie. The I'm a winner ball. That creates this sense inside of you that's dangerous. She brings it down, places it in the pond. It forms. She gets to strum across, I'm a good person. Mom and dad love me. I'm a good daughter. And then puberty starts. And they come knocking in, and the construction workers pull up and they leave the room a mess. And she's like, you can't leave this like this. Oh, we'll be back. And that's puberty. You just feel like you getting messed up in your mind. I don't know how, Stella, I don't know how much you relate to that feeling.
Yeah, like honestly, not to cut you off, bro, but I kind of want to hear Stella's take on that as someone who has gone through it the most recently and is going through it actively. Like, Stella, what do you feel about the way that they painted puberty? Did the whole alarm? No, we for us as adults beyond puberty, we look at it and go, that's so funny. That's so clever. But as like somebody going through it, how did that actually make you feel to like watch that?
Oh, well, like I said, this movie was very relatable, even though I hate to admit that. But, like, it was a good representation. And I feel like many people going through puberty, my ages above, can relate to that, and that it does mess with your headspace, and they correctly displayed that throughout this movie.
Yeah, that's cool. It's good to hear your take.
Okay. And when Riley wakes up and she's just going back and forth because the control panel, one little touch and she's super angry or super sad. How do you feel about that? Do you relate to that too? Do you feel like you fluctuate in emotions?
That I wake up from my slumber? No. Are you kidding? Maybe like anger? No, that's kind of like, I'm surprised like it wasn't like displayed through like, I don't know, like dreams. Well, was there many dreams? Oh, well, like the first movie we had the dream thing that like why was it not displayed through that?
What, the beginning of puberty?
No, like when she was like, what you just said that she was like walking back and forth because of all the emotions.
Well, when she was bugging out on her parents, like, I'm a loser, I'm angry at you, yada, yada, yada. You ever feel like that? You feel like you wake up and you just mad and sad, and then people around you are just like, what's wrong with you?
You're calling me out. Yes.
I'm not calling you. I'm asking you a question.
No. Yes, I do that. But there's no excuse for that. Yeah, that does happen.
I mean, you said that this movie was helping you see stuff, so we that's why you're here. We're trying to dive into your experience. To focus on your dream thing real quick, Disney Plus is actually dropping a television show next year that's focused on the dream factory in Riley's mind. So the whole show is about her dream factory and the things that it produces. So maybe you'll get some things that you want from there. You know what I'm saying? They building the brand. They building the brand. For me, man, I just liked seeing that anger and sadness and all of that just fluctuating back and forth, because I guess I understand, like, from my puberty days of how that could fluctuate, how one moment I'm one way and then I'm another. And it's like not necessarily even understandable to me. Like, it's just how I'm feeling in the moment, right?
Yeah.
And it's annoying that other people don't get that. But I low key feel like I'm not even gonna say that. Isaiah, you got thoughts
on puberty?
On just that initial shakeup?
Yeah, I think yeah, man, I think going back to what you said about Joy not learning from her lesson, she can't. She's immature. She's an immature emotion. She's an emotion you're born with. And I think that goes back to this idea of like this new batch of emotions, them quote unquote replacing, is an interesting concept because of the FOMO that the current emotions feel. It personifies them. I think that's interesting. But joy can't help but want to always be positive all the time. And the reality is, to be someone who's a complete optimist, that means if you're optimistic all the time, you're not living in reality. There are very real real hard things that go on in life. She learned that lesson in the first movie with sadness because of the mix of things and how it can be a complexity. But there's this level of like letting go that they introduced with that. And honestly, what I loved about it was they do this beautiful thing where they don't say it. When you've seen the first movie and you've seen and it had a relationship with these emotions, you feel the intrusion as well. But what I love is that as you journey through the movie, you start to realize slowly, if you didn't notice that when that I'm a winner sense of self belief gets put in, if you just think that that's an okay thing, like in a pop, then you start to realize anxiety and joy are not too different from one another. They're actually quite similar. And low key, right from the beginning of the movie, there's this idea that like the only reason why anxiety was able to do half of what she's done is because of joy leaving a door open for it to exist in the first place. And I think they subtly suggest it. They don't harp on it. And then they keep building. So I loved that. And then when it comes to the puberty side of things, love the sensitivity to the board. Love the emotions trying to be like, man, you're broke. Oh, snap. Nah, he right. They really jacked this up. This is crazy. You know what I mean? I loved that concept. And then the way it's actualized inside of Riley. That scene with her and her mom from the trailer that was in the movie as well was great. This whole, that's a preview of what the next 10, 15 years of life is going to be like. Like, I love that. That was so good. But yeah, I really think that the shaking up of puberty was smart. They made it look very, you understand it. You can understand. This would be taught. This little 5-minute clip of them kicking down the door, that could be played in psychology classes forever. There's no reason it shouldn't be.
Right.
I think it's perfect.
Right. So what I like about this movie is how they chose the emotions that they brought onto the table, right? Because there's so many emotions that they could have brought. You know, they were talking about bringing shame into the mix and other things like that, right? And you just begin to think, yo, that's a good idea. But at the end of the day, they decided that the emotions that they want at HQ are the emotions that no matter what, no matter their positive or negative effects, their goal is always to be for Riley. For Riley. We are doing this for Riley. And they felt like something like shame, not necessarily for her in the best way, but anxiety, whether wrong or right, is trying to help Riley. You know, envy is wanting something for Riley. So I like how they pick those specific emotions. That's why when, you know, people online be like, yo, where's her freaky emotion? Right, Stella?
Yeah.
Where's that? Relax. She's also just a 13-year-old that this is her first 3 days of puberty. You know, it didn't cover all of it, which is why, Stella, I think you didn't get something like boy problems, because it is just the first 3 days of puberty. And I know
boys don't just pop out during puberty.
No, of course. But we've already seen in the first movie her deal with boys, you know, not seriously, but briefly. And then they had the short where she was going on her little crush date. And this one, again, first 3 days of puberty, but we know it's there. We know that it exists. They even refer to it in the film when they show the Rushmore of crushes, and the little dude is still on the Rushmore, you know? So we know that it's there. It's just not the center focus of the film, but they didn't wash it away entirely. So yeah. I think that's what I mean when I say there's potential for the future to get more that dive into those things.
Yeah.
But who knows if Pixar would be even willing to take that step? Because
I think they will. I think that they've set themselves up to talk about controversial concepts. Like I've seen a lot of different theories about, you know, is Riley going to end up, you know, becoming a lesbian? Is like there's so many places that Disney could take this story, and because they've decided to tell the emotional story of it, it can kind of somewhat stay objective while it being it's a very subjective concept. Like the idea of romance for you might happen as early as 13, but there might be other kids who don't even think about, you know, another person in a romantic way. They might have an ick to them until they're 14, 15. Like it's not the same for everyone. And I think that means that Riley's experience is unique. So they get this subjective understanding, but they approach it through an objective and scientific way with the way that they tell the emotional story. So I like that. I thought that was very smart. Yeah, I thought that was a good idea.
Yeah. So we getting more. So we getting more. You'll get your boyfriend story eventually,
Yeah,
and maybe you'll relate to that then, right?
you'll get some story. We'll see what they do.
Making those faces over there. You better relax.
Yeah, that was not cute.
No, why not?
Because I don't relate with that.
I didn't say you did. I said maybe when it drops, you will.
In 9 years?
I don't know about
That's
9
up
years.
to you, homie.
We'll
That's
see.
up to you. So when they bottle up our emotions, our primary OG emotions, and they send them away, and she says, she needs more complicated emotion than you. Anxiety is making the same mistake as joy and thinking that she is all that she needs. Riley only needs this one emotion, All the other emotions that are the newer ones, they kind of feel like sidekicks to anxiety.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, it hurt for me specifically because I'm like, damn, like I wanted more. I wanted to see them all play a role. Like Envy doesn't even really feel crazy enough to me because she shot off 2 lines about wanting to be like someone else, and that's it.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that. Ennui, it's cool, but I feel like Ennui was just more so used as like a plot device rather than an actual character. Like with her phone being the control center from afar, like that felt like the most impact that Ennui had on the film. And I know Ennui also delivered sarcasm into the film, but again, the phone, it feels like they wanted someone who was lazy so that they could bring this controlling device. So I was left a little disappointed by those newer emotions besides anxiety. But I mean, there's always room to expand on them. So when they bottle them up and they send them to the dungeons and they send them, I forgot what it's called in the movie, but essentially their jail cell that has the figments of Riley's past, like her version of Dora with the pouchy thing, and the video game character that Riley has a crush on that is animated like that, and her deep dark secret. That was cool. I like that concept of the vault in your mind that you lock those things away in and you hope that they don't come out.
Yeah.
And that was cool. Although at the same time, I'm also like, I'm iffy on the characters that were introduced. I'm not crazy about Pouchy. I'm not crazy on all those dudes because it just like it feels more creative, And I know, Isaiah, you brought up the psychology. Like I wish there was more than just that and how it manages to break out and all that. But I mean, it was enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, whoever came up with that idea was an interesting take, especially because as much as it could have been a bunch of other things, the one thing I felt like they succeeded on with that is it was relatable to me. It's the same way with the triple denkum. Like everybody has like a melody that you get stuck in your head every once in a while. It's a subtle detail, but you see her go through it and you go, word, that's exactly how I feel sometimes that happened. So, when he's like, here's the secret, and his eyes get mad beady, the cartoon character, and he's like, she still likes the show. It brought me back to when I was in like 4th grade and I was afraid to tell my friends that I still watch Blue's Clues because my little sister's 4 years younger than me. She loved it and I would enjoy watching it with her. That's not something you would tell. I'm not going to tell people I'm playing action figures with Willie at 14 years old. You know what I mean? So these ideas, they're real, things you're embarrassed by. It creates a dimension, a deeper understanding of who Riley is as a person. And as a result, you can relate to that. And then you're like, it almost feels like you're telling my story with the way that this is going. Because again, it's objective with the way they're telling it. So it's like, I thought that was smart. I thought the whole Mickey Mouse, which objects, Dora the Explorer, dynamite. Like that joint had me dead, OD dynamite, and then him being like, I tried to offer you the measuring tape. That joint had me dying. Like him as a character, Pouchy as a character, I thought that was mad funny. The video game character also, I understand what you're saying in that, like in terms of like, did he need to be there? Was it that important? Yeah, maybe not. But at the same time, like it's also like you have crushes on things when you're in that age, and those crushes exist, and you're afraid to talk about those things. So I actually think that those characters existing paint more of what puberty does. And that's why I like that they were there. That's the real reason.
Right. I think for me, it's just I wish they were there under a different circumstance. Sure.
Yeah.
But again, enjoyable either way. What do you think about the Vault of Secrets myth?
I think a lot. I think I continue guessing what her big secret is all the time. And I've read what many people think it is, and I agree with some of them. I could imagine some of them.
I mean, we know what it is, though. I know you said you walked out of the theater, but it's at the very end of the movie. They
I
tell you
left as soon as it ended.
But since you brought that up, that's where a lot of people thought this idea that Riley could be gay came from, right? And it's very interesting talking with your mom, Stella, about this idea that she didn't get at all. She wasn't picking up any idea that, oh, maybe this could be that she's gay. Versus me in the theater, I'm saying, oh, is this the route they're going? Like not saying that it is, but is this where they're going to go with it? Just because they show her, and then, the movie shows her Mount Rushmore of boy crushes, and like the movie paints this picture that she likes boys, but obviously we know that like just because you feel one way now doesn't mean that something else will be unlocked later. But it also brings up an issue that I think like, people nowadays, they don't like friendship, with Riley like being crazy about this junior going into senior for the hockey team. They were like, yo, she's not she loves her, she's obsessed with her, and I'm like, yo, what if she just has someone that she looks up to? So that's what's been bothering me, that people online are very much like so focused that it has to be a crush. I'm like, yo, why can't we just let platonic friendships, and she's an 8th grader going into this hockey team, that's her idol, like that's what it is. Let's not go deeper. But I also wouldn't have been mad if it were anything else. But Stella, her secret was that she burned a carpet. She burned a hole in her carpet when she was younger, and she was carrying that. So that's what that was.
Yeah. It was silly, but I think it's not as much about what the secret is. It's more so about the fact that the secret exists. And,
right. She's carrying that.
Yeah, she's carrying that. We have the capacity as people to carry these secrets, no matter how silly they may be. They're big deals to us inside. And I think they got that across pretty well. And I do want to just go back, bro, and I guess go bar for bar with you on this. I the whole movie, one thought that's in my brain as we get to this next section is, man, these emotions defer to Joy for everything. They want Joy to solve everything. They want Joy to be the leader. What do we do next? What's going on? So when she has her breakdown, that's big, right? But I think they needed that dynamic to be very much emphasized so that this mirroring of joy and anxiety not being too different from each other, for that theme to get across. And so when the other emotions, though they're new and we wish we could hear more from them, yes, we could hear more from them later. I liked the little roles they played underneath anxiety being the face of that new cluster of emotions, because they all defer to anxiety. Envy is waiting for what anxiety says to do. Anxiety has her little projection of what could be using the imagination land. Like this idea of like, yeah, you're the one that is in control. You run the show. We'll just let you ride. That seems like something that would be true of envy, who would be insecurity. That's insecure. Envy comes from insecurity. So if you're not sure of yourself, then you're not going to do anything. She wouldn't want to be in control. Embarrassment is afraid of being embarrassed. So why would he want to take control? He's going to defer. Anui, she's bored. The whole shiz is not enticing to her. So she's not going to want to take control. Nostalgia, obviously, they kick her out. So it's like these little roles they play are appropriate based on which emotions they are, while anxiety being a driving force, that fear of what could happen, that drives a lot of us. And so I think they really did a good job at that, in my opinion. And I saw what they were trying to do as the original emotions started traveling through, trying to get the sense of self restored.
Right.
So I thought that was good.
I see what they were trying to do, but I'm still disappointed that Io was sidelined. I'm disappointed that, these characters, and I feel the same way about the first movie, that, joy and sadness really have that big role, that it's like, okay, the other ones, they're kind of side characters. And, I just want to see more. I would like to see more. I want to see what happens when anger takes control for more than 2 seconds, but, yeah, I just think as the movie progresses and anxiety is going more and more deeper into her stance, we see her anxiety factory where, all right, pump out every scenario you can think of. I know I do that.
Yep.
I know you do that, Ivy. Stella, 100%. Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why?
Pumping out every scenario to prepare yourself for future
Outcomes. Yeah.
yeah, like for the future. So you always have something to do.
Right. And I think it's cool that the movie paints it like this 1984 stylized like workshop factory, in sense like they're all in small cubicles trying to pump out their ideas as
Like a
fast as
sweatshop.
possible, because like that's what it is, and it becomes very overwhelming, and it's meant to help. We overthink because we think it's helping us, but it's also hurting us whenever we don't do it properly, right? And so I mean, when she's in there, she's like, Joy, I see you. Like, it's almost scary. Like, yo, anxiety, relax. It's okay. But the goal of anxiety is to push and push and push and get more and more like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to help, but it's not gonna.
Yeah.
And so they blow up the place, they have a little revolution, and that's like a first win against anxiety, and it's not easy to win against anxiety. It's really not.
Yep.
So that moment was cool. And, I mean, Ivy, I'm going to let you take over this section in terms of them getting out via brainstorm and everything, because there's something I do want to dive deeper into, but I want you to be able to express. And Stella, if you have anything also, just jump in.
Yeah, I mean, before that, I was going to wait, but you had mentioned it earlier. I loved the sarcasm. I thought the sarcasm with the H was so smart. That was hilarious. And I also love the tear in the brain that causes that, because the structure of the human brain in its simplicity doesn't have the capacity to know what sarcasm is. But once maturity comes, you can say one thing and it means something completely different. That is what sarcasm is. And it shatters what was reality. You feel like this, you do this. So when she's like, I've been waiting my whole life for this moment, and then she hits it, I loved that scene. I thought that was great. The whole trailer scene of, hey, can you help us? Oh, can you please help us? Thought that was mad funny. You know what I mean? I feel like that was spot on. But yeah, so moving forward, I loved the scene with the sweatshop in the imagination, because we saw this exact sweatshop imagination wise when the dreams were happening, in terms of this dynamic of like the show that goes on in the mind when Riley is asleep. We saw that with the first movie with Ming Bong and them trying to scare her to get her awake. And again, it's like they did that for their own reasons, manipulated it. And so anxiety is doing the same thing Joy did in the first movie, because Joy is just striking back, doing the same thing. So it's like, it's still abusing or manipulating the idea of imagination. That's what these emotions are doing. And that's how it goes, whether you want to control it or not. We've all had those nights where it's a sweaty night because you're having a nightmare of what's happening the next night or the next morning, maybe a test that you have to do, a conversation you need to have with somebody. Like that was very real. I thought that was so good. And I felt the freedom that she was creating by coming up with dumb ideas, like, oh, well, Riley likes these things and that things, and Anger's like, oh, we should do this. I'm not always angry. Like, it was just a great moment to see the different ways the emotions could play their role in helping in that. I thought they all had a great part in that. I love that. But yeah, moving forward, they go through the brainstorm. And the brainstorm is as a result of anxiety needing to come up with an idea that can help them to conquer what Riley is dealing with. And I believe it happens. It's when she gets the idea to go and get the notebook, right? That is the anxiety light bulb moment.
Yes. When she pops the huge one in.
Yeah, and I loved that scene. The reason why I love that scene is because the emotions were using that to get out of the storm, and they had to exercise letting go in that moment. And that's something that's a big theme for the whole movie, this idea of letting go. So they had to let her experience having a bad anxiety idea and doing something that's not true to who she is. So I love that they did that in a subtle way. But yeah, they move forward, and then they also have Sadness go back inside, and she's able to recruit Embarrassment on her side from the back of the headquarters. And I like that Embarrassment and Sadness have a bit of a connection right from the beginning of the movie too. We didn't mention that. What's your name, big guy? I like that. I liked how they did that. That was dope. because embarrassment and sadness, it makes sense that they would have a relationship as emotions, does it not? You know what I mean? It makes lots of sense.
Yeah, I mean, the same way fear has some kind of weird attachment to anxiety. Like, it's interesting.
And envy with disgust. Oh my God, your hair. I love your hair. Oh my God, can I touch it? You know what I mean? Like, that was really, really good.
What's funny? What are you laughing at?
It reminds me of those like videos that like it's shipping them, like fear and anxiety. That's so funny.
The shipping is too much, bro.
That's so funny.
Shipping culture, it's gotten out of hand, bro. It's gotten out of hand.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so the progress of the story itself more so starts to show some of what's happening in Riley's world now. She's found out that she's not ready from the coach's book. It's sent her into a tizzy, and then she's going dummy hard. And anxiety is just on a grand, trying to conquer. First off, I'm sorry, I just have to say, I loved the idea of the 3 light bulbs that anxiety put on the desk. And every time that she makes a goal or a score, she flicks one on. I thought that subtle idea of like, she had all her systems in front of her and she was so prepared for everything so that when it's done, she can flick this and like, it just was so, that's definitely anxiety, 100%. It had me going, whoa, the way I got my desk set up, yo, do I kind of like control things out of anxiety more than I think I do? Like, boom, it was getting me. I was chopped up. So she goes, she's going dummy hard. She's not playing with her teammates as a good teammate. She's just trying to get the conquering of an extreme goal of beating Val's score, which is no one is even telling her she needs to do that. But anxiety is telling her that she needs to, which is another really big point. How many points in our lives do we put pressure on ourselves that no one else is putting on us? And how much of anxiety is behind the wheel in those moments? They suggest that. And then that's when the emotions are able to finally make their way back over to the headquarters by having this breakdown moment when they find the sense of self, and Joy having to have another realization moment deep in the mind of Riley, like she did in the first movie when she's with Big Bob. And I thought that was sick.
Something we haven't talked about was basically the whole plot with Riley. She's more of a character in this film than she is. In the last movie, she's kind of a vehicle. This one, she's straight up. She has her own plot, trying to get on this team. Her friends are leaving her to a different school, and she hates that because she's been that before, and she's just scared. And so they follow this whole plot, which leads her to go and try and get the notebook and figure it out. Okay, I need to score 3. This is what I need to do. And I love that, seeing that from Riley, because it made me care about her even more than I did in the first film. And I cared about her a lot. I'm like, yo, they're really doing something with her. And so, to talk about the moment where Joy has her breakdown, because this is something that I really felt on my last watch of the movie earlier this week. Everybody focuses on the line that Joy says. Maybe this is what happens when you grow up. You feel less joy.
Yeah, it's good.
Now, Stella, how do you feel about that line? Because I have something I want to say, but I want to know what you feel as someone who recently went through a switch in terms of joy was a high factor and now it's probably changed. So what do you think about that line?
I agree with that line. I agree to disagree. I think this movie highlights a lot. I think this movie, I didn't agree with this, but when I was hating on the movie, how mom said that anxiety like took over joy, and like how anxiety like really like pushes down joy, like anxiety takes over. And like that just like really made me relate to the movie more and understand the movie more than I did originally.
Right. And so a lot of people would agree, similar to you, that line, it's real, it's true. You do feel less joy, right? And so I'm thinking about this line and I'm thinking, damn, this is really everybody's takeaway, that you feel less joy. But then people don't focus on the follow-up line that happens about maybe 20 minutes later in the film. You know what I'm saying? Like, for the most part, regarding that line about how you experience less joy, it's a reality that many people accept, in terms of they feel this way and they're like, yup. And they're like, yep, this is how I'm going to live my life now. They've come to just say, I've accepted this a long time ago. The line later in the film, after all is said and done, they hug the new sense of self, which is a beautiful scene because it's just telling you that you need to love yourself. You need to hug yourself. You need to be graceful with yourself. You know, even anxiety comes out of her tornado to hug. The panel lights up and it's yellow. And they say, Joy, Riley wants you. The line that no one's focusing on, because what that line is trying to say, and I think it's a missed point from everybody who's watched the movie, and their biggest takeaway is that you experience as joy, is you want joy as a human being. You need joy as a human being. There are more obstacles to find the joy, but as a growing person, it's up to you to navigate, to learn how to navigate the spaces to find joy. And for me, I don't expect teenagers to know how to navigate those spaces to find joy easily, because straight up, this is the time in your life where you're meant to not know and learn how to. You know what I'm saying? Like, Stella, you're not meant to know how to be happy all the time. You're not going to be happy all the time. But this is the point in your life where you need to find healthy ways to find joy and learn who you are as yourself to know the best ways you can experience joy. Because as we become adults, we need to learn how to live with the fact that joy is not found everywhere, but we can't, it's also not expected that it just comes to us the way it was when we were children. Joy doesn't come to us. We're big people now. We're big boys and big girls, and we need to go find it ourselves. And if you accept that your life is just going to be joyless, well, then that's on you. You know what I'm saying? There are circumstances, of course. I'm not going to bring in the nature of society and the world and all that, how it paints a picture of why it's bad to do that. But as a person, find your joy. Don't be ashamed of your joy, unless it's some weird shit. And yeah, I think that's just my big takeaway. Be kinder to yourself. Love yourself. Give yourself grace. Parents with teenagers, give them grace. They're just figuring it out. Help them figure it out. They may have tried to do it incorrectly. And instead of going at them for it, help them learn why that's not the way to do it, so that they can try somewhere else. And don't just hand them don't hand them the lessons you learned. Don't try to just say, here's how you do it, because it may not work for them. They got to figure it out. So I think that's what this whole section of the film was stating. So watch the movie again. Focus on that line. Maybe you'll feel differently, I think.
Yeah, I just think we got to that end part, and I guess I'll speak on the end part, but I love that scene because of the anxiety attack. I only love that scene because of the anxiety attack. If it had not had, if it wasn't preceded by the anxiety attack, it wouldn't have hit as hard. And so it's like this idea of the emotions, accepting that they have to let Riley go. Joy realizing as she's telling anxiety, she has to let her go, because that lesson's being learned by her in real time as she tried to establish the old sense of self that she had created, just like anxiety had created a new one. I love the the duality of that lesson for both of those emotions was dope, right? But then that scene, man, when she comes down from the anxiety attack, psychologists and therapists teach the techniques of using the 5 senses to be able to ground yourself again when you're in the middle of an anxiety attack. Breathing deep, smelling things, touching things to remember that you're still here. So that scene, back to what I said about cinematography, when she runs her hand on the wooden bench, you feel her grounding yourself on the other end of this intense set of scenes where she was going hard on the ice, trying to score, missing over and over again. Like everything you see visually from her going like this while standing terrified in the middle, you feel it. It's something that's felt. So when she settles it down, and then there's the restoration with her friends, and she's able to be a multi-dimensional emotional being through her maturity in that scene. When that light shines on her and she puts her face to it, and then that's when things turn yellow, dog, I bawled my eyes out.
Right.
Because it's not just that you make room for joy. No, you choose joy. We choose to feel these things. Here is a maturity point for for Riley. She's made to feel things because she's immature, but part of maturity is choosing how you're going to feel. And that starts to change the whole framework of how you appreciate other things in the movie. Like, why is it that these emotions in Riley's head are standing all at the controls and the console in a line, but when you see the parents, they're sitting down in a boardroom type stance. You don't see as much of a, okay, let's click and control these things, because the emotions aren't as much in control of the adults as much as the adults choose to feel those emotions. And I think that was what they got across so well visually. I felt that. I was like, yo, y'all snapped. Y'all snapped right here. Like, I can't not cry. I got to choose joy more often in my life. I got to put myself in positions to let the light shine on me. I have to remember to ground myself. Those are things I really felt, and that's why I thought that scene was special. And I know I'm on a rant, but the other thing we skipped over that I want to hear you guys on is, we talked earlier about how Joy was making this silly mistake of repressing emotions and memories, sending them. And it's that same pile of repressed things, she didn't even realize how big it was, that they ride and have to let touch and become beliefs. What did you think about that concept? The fact that what's repressed is going to pop up no matter what. Just because you shut it down and act like it never happened doesn't mean it doesn't have an impact on you. At some point, it's going to. And in fact, you need to accept those things to truly become a multidimensional being. What did you think about that?
Stella, you want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay. The way I took it is, you are who you are. All faults included, growth areas included, mistakes build you. You can't just take the good. You can't just focus on the good days. You got to focus on the bad days too, because that's who you are. You know what I mean? Joy can throw, Riley forgot that thing or did bad on that thing. Let's throw that to the back so she doesn't think about it. Well, there are people in your life that still know about it, and they're going to see you for that. So why are you lying to yourself?
Big facts.
Be truthful to yourself. If you're not truthful to yourself about who you are, then how can other people get to know who you are either?
Big fact.
How can Riley have great connections with her parents or her friends or her teachers if she's lying to who she is about herself?
Yeah.
So we need to do that too. We need to be honest. We can't just pick and choose what people see of us, because the real is going to come out.
Yeah.
So them riding that wave of everything back in and forming that true sense of self, that's also self-acceptance. On the days where you feel like a piece of crap, it's okay. We got you. You know?
Yeah.
On those days where you want to be a little bit nasty, rightfully so, okay. We here, because that's who you are. So
yeah, that's good. Yeah, I thought that too. What about you, Stella? What did you think about all of those repressed memories having to be in a part of how Riley makes who she is?
From personal experience, I push a lot of things away from my memories, especially my past. So I understand that. Like, I've also came to a self-realization that in order to get over those memories, I kind of do have to relive them and I have to remember them. Because it caused me to be the person I am today, and it does help because you're building to be that better person from who you were in the past.
Yeah, it's good. That's good. I think that's what they want people to walk away understanding, regardless of how old you may be. But I really just think that point and what joy and anxiety come to the realization in this, if you're right, your age, anybody in that demographic can watch this movie and can glean some wisdom from this movie in terms of how much grace, like Willie said, you give yourself. And the fact that it's messy, man. Growing up is messy, dude. It's not easy. We're all growing up all the time. You know what I mean? Me as an adult, for example, I've got a child, yet I'll be honest with you, the amount of times in a week I open up my phone and I type in what to do when, you know what I mean? Like, that's just life, man. It's not, no one understands it. So when they're asking Joy, what do we do next? What do we do next? Joy is maturing herself as emotion because she's like, I don't know, dog. I don't know. None of us do. None of us do. We don't know. But accepting that we don't know is definitely the first step toward being able to accept all of who we are and becoming more So I really think they killed that, man. I loved it. I really hate the fact that people are saying that anxiety is the antagonist of this movie. I don't think she's the antagonist at all. I don't think there's any antagonist in this film, just like there were no antagonists in the first one. Just think that, because if she's an antagonist, then Joy's just as much of an antagonist when it all goes down, when it all set apart. She plays a perceived role of what you would think is an antagonist in a story structure, but when it's all said and done, there is no antagonist. It's just life, bro. And they really painted that so well in this movie. I love the themes. I love the conversation points. And I really am one of those people who's going to be Inside Out 2 over Inside Out 1. For me personally, I know there's not a lot of people in that camp. Not just because it's grossing. I just think the maturity of the conversations is deep. It gets real deep over here in the second film. The first film got some crazy concepts, but second film, I just felt like, in the life where I'm at right now, I'm like, yeah, this is preaching it. This is talking to my soul. So it was a great film, bro. Great film, Louis.
Yeah. Anxiety is absolutely the antagonist of the film.
Can't agree.
I mean, straight up.
Can't agree with that.
Absolutely. I mean, no disrespect. You're wrong. She is the antagonist. She's not a villain, but she is the opposing force towards the protagonist of the films, of Riley and our emotions. Whether or not her wants are correct, she is straight up, like, even Pete Docter called her the antagonist.
That's fine. But so, I guess then getting a little bit more explicit in terms of what I mean by antagonist, it's like people think that she's bad. And no. I'm just saying I don't think she's bad. Even self-doubt. Self-doubt is not bad. Self-doubt exists. It's just it's a thing, and that's what she had created, a sense of self in her. I'm not good enough. Right. I mean,
the movie, like the director said, like, all these emotions are here for the good of Riley. Right. It doesn't mean that the good is the outcome, but their purpose is to try and be the good.
Sure.
But she is the antagonizing force, just because antagonist is the character in the story who is the rival of, and she becomes accepted. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's
I'm understanding that, but I'm still not convinced, because the only reason why this quote unquote antagonist exists is because Joy made room for something like this to exist by making Riley a one-dimensional being from the beginning. So it's like, right. That's why I'm like, if she's the antagonist, then so is Joy. And in fact, all of the emotions are just as much antagonists as they are protagonists.
Then you're using the word differently than I am. Heroes and villains and good guys and bad guys. But story antagonists, absolutely. With all the other emotions being, I think it's like deuterologists or dualists, whatever. Like, it's that they're there to play their roles. But anxiety was great as my antagonist, because she felt like she was pushing the limits that everybody wanted to see. We wanted to see Riley down bad. We wanted to see just the pain and suffering, that how do they come out of that? How do these things heal? How do we heal? And, my two best animated scenes were her little storm that Joy needs to walk into, as well as the panic attack straight up. It was beautiful. It was scary to watch. Stella, do you have anything you want to say, or?
Personally, my favorite scene was like where anxiety's asking for all
the projections.
Yes, because I felt like I really related to that. And I just I liked how it was displayed in the movie.
Yeah, facts. Me too. I liked when Joy was telling Sadness, I was using it as a cup holder. Like, I thought that was so brilliant, smart line. Right. Joy would have no reason to project negativity. So that existing in the console, something she'd never explore. She doesn't need to. She doesn't feel like it's necessary. So it was cool.
Right. Yeah. For me, I think my favorite scene of the film is the end. It's the end of the film, straight up. When she's like, oh, did I make it onto this team or not? And she says, oh, it doesn't matter. And then we don't get to know. We hear the phone buzz. She looks down, she looks up and smiles. And that could mean anything because she's accepted that no matter what, she's good. And I love that. I love that self-acceptance. I love that no matter what, she's happy because she knows she's all right. I think that's great. So, I mean, I thought this movie was cool. I thought it was special. I just think that, we need more like this. We need more. We know what Pixar's next film is, but I mean, we're not going to talk about that now. And Inside Out 2, man, it was my most anticipated movie of the year. I can't claim it's my favorite, but I mean, it was good. It was damn good.
Word.
And I do like one more, obviously. Stella?
I'm going to say the second one.
I like that growth because you was telling me this one shouldn't even exist a month ago. I was saying the first one was so much better. I got you on Letterboxd. You put that joint at a 7 and you were like, this shouldn't exist, but it was okay. So I like that.
It's okay.
Bro. That's why we wait a month to do these, by the way.
Bars.
Let it breathe. Yeah, I give that John a 9.5 for sure for me. I just thought there's not a lot of complaints that I have. I don't really have any complaints. I just won't give it a 10 because
it's a solid 8 for me.
Because to me, it's like a 10 for it to have been perfect. Maybe it just needed to be a brand new IP. It being a sequel, I'll give it a 0.5 knockoff. But, I think at the end of the day, the only reason why I say that, and this is one argument that people are saying they give it negative for, and I can understand it, is there is a copy and paste structure to this movie a little bit in terms of the format, in terms of the way that life goes. But I think they leaned into it on purpose, similar to movies that do this all the time. I mean, we've talked about Star Wars here and how I've said that Force Awakens is literally a structural copy of A New Hope in a lot of different ways. I think that's the same thing that happens here. Even Joy's realization deep in the recesses of the brain happens around the same minute mark that it happens in the first movie. They structure it very similarly. But I don't think that that's a bad thing, considering, again, it's an objective view of these emotions that are subjective to everyone. So it's like you get a little bit of a pass. So I give it to you. I understand why they did it. But yeah, man, it was a killer. I think this was an instant. As soon as I saw it, I was like, boom, this is an instant classic. Wouldn't be surprised if this is one of the most, if not the most highly performing movie as of right now in the year. Deadpool's coming up. I don't know what Deadpool will do, but this movie standing strong as highest grossing for Pixar and one of, if not the highest grossing film of the year so far, makes lots of sense to me. I think it deserves a level of acclaim.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree. I think read my Letterboxd review. Maybe I'll throw it in the comment section on YouTube just so people could get my negatives and positives. Because overall, I just really wanted to dive into this movie and what we liked about it, Yeah. But I would agree with the structure of the story and everything like that. So, I mean, that's it for Inside Out 2. I mean, there will be more conversations had about it as we hit the end of the year, of course. And, this was Stella's first episode. It won't be her last. She has things that she wants to talk about deeply. And hopefully this was just her coming into it, getting a little bit more comfortable. Next time, hopefully you feel a little bit more, I'm diving in. So, Stella, you got anything you want to say here after your first run of Cuzzo-OP?
I want to shout Willie out for cosplaying as Anxiety today. It looks really cute. Looks really cute.
See, this is what we needed to see. This is the energy we need from you. See, that's Stella. That's Stella right there.
The burn was crazy.
It's really cute. I wasn't expecting it.
Mm-hmm. You see, I like that. That's who I want y'all to know. That's hopefully who we get next time around too.
Man, she brought that here today, bro. Thank you so much for joining us, Stella. We really appreciate it. And it's cool because Willie said, siblings he's trying to get, but it's still Cuzzo-OP squared, you know what I mean? Because you're my cousin, so it's cool to have family on here no matter what. Thank you for showing up.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I mean, next week we have a few things planned for you. We still have one episode that we've kept a little bit of a secret, and obviously we have episode 77 dropping, which cyberpunk related, and it's gonna be an interesting one. It's gonna be quite a packed episode. So, that's it for us here today.
Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Cuzzo-OP. Like Arrow said, there's lots coming. In the next month, we're going to have one of the biggest blockbusters that Marvel has had all of their chips on come out. And so once that movie comes out, in terms of Deadpool and Wolverine, we'll talk about it. Give it a month to breathe or so, and then we'll be here and we'll be talking about it. So stay tuned with us. The fall is becoming stacked with a lot of great movies. Trailers have dropped this week a ton in the last 2 weeks, honestly. A lot of special things I'm looking forward to seeing this year and talking about. A couple things I think are going to be Oscar nominations for sure. They're going to be like cream of the crop flicks, in my opinion. So stay tapped in with us. If you know somebody who appreciated Inside Out 2 as well as loves Inside Out 1, send this conversation to them if you thought that this was interesting. We'd love to hear your thoughts underneath the comments of the YouTube video. Let us know what you thought. Did you think this was good? Which is better, Inside Out 1 or Inside Out 2? We love those conversations. That's what this is all about. It's about connecting. So again, we thank you for tapping into another episode of Cuzzo-OP. And remember, every time that you tap in with us, you're going to find 3 things: 2 cousins, 1 podcast, and endless entertainment. Peace.